Hey, what's up guys, Sir Emanon here, and welcome to another episode of Inside DB Rated. This is the live commentary series where I go ahead and just spectate random matches on DB's ladder and check out what's happening in the metagame here. So we have right now Hcabe 777 on 570 rating versus Dogmatika on 730. It looks like both players are playing 50 card lists, which is pretty interesting this format. And Trollix going first, starting off with a copy of normal summoning Brotar, or normal summoning a copy of Brotar, I should say. That's going to turn into a Striker Dragon. It looks like he's going to be playing Dragon Link. So pretty interesting to see how this deck is going to adapt, or has been adapting. Droll coming down, though, from the main deck. That's pretty interesting. So after the Brute Sector launch gets searched via the Striker Dragon, no more searches, so no more Romulus searching. But it doesn't matter when you have two hard drawn rockets. He's wasting no time at all, sending out Recharger and the Rocket Synchron from the Sector, and then going for the Hcabe off of the Striker and the Rocket Synchron, summoning out Phalanx from the deck. He's going to then turn the Recharger into LP because now he has the zones available. So you can just go for LP Striker or LP Pissy depending on how he likes to combo off. And it's interesting because we haven't seen this deck a ton, obviously due to the banning of Link Cross and Dragon Buster Destruction Sword. But this deck can go for some interesting plays for sure. I do wonder how the extra deck has changed as well, because you're not going to be playing Link Cross, obviously, and probably not Carrier anymore either, even though that did have utility in like equipping Striker or Black Bundle Dragon. I don't think those are enough to justify playing that card on its own, but looks like Striker is going to be the pick over the LP, and then, over the Pissy right away. LP summoned the Tracer, then he went for Protector, and then going for Pissy off of this Tracer to bring it back. And now the question is, what do you end on? Because I'm very curious. Striker Dragon going to go ahead and destroy the Pissy. That can add back Recharger. And Recharger actually can summon itself. It just has to target a destroyed monster and then special summon one with a different name. But it can summon itself back. So we'll see. Oh, not triggering the Recharger there. Pretty interesting. He's going to go for Seal off of the Striker and the Protector Whelp, then use the Tracer targeting the Boot Sector to go for Silver. That's pretty interesting. He could have just as well triggered the Recharger and then kept the Boot Sector up on his field, really valuing the Recharger in hand. I wonder why that might be. But he's going to end on Seal Savage, which, I mean, compared to last format, is obviously a much weaker board, but you don't need as much in this format in a lot of cases, because the format's just gotten a lot grindier. So I think just Seal by itself is obviously incredible for helping facilitate the grind game. But now we will see what Hcabe is playing. Rest in peace, Hcabe Invoker. But let's see. Yeah, he could have like used the Recharger in his hand to summon back anything, even if it like wasn't itself, and then use Tracer to pop it. But we'll see. Actually, he could have used a Recharger to summon back the Brotar too. But he's on a Droll, so he can like search, obviously. But I mean, that would have been an interesting interaction there, had that not been the case. So he's spending quite a while thinking. Let's go ahead and just speed this up a little bit. So he's going to start off with a copy of Forbidden Droplet, sending away Dark Magician and Elixir of Scarlet Sanguine, so that's going to turn off the board. So he is on an Eldlich build. Now, when I hopped into this match and before I tabbed away, I only saw Eldlich cards, so I don't know what build of Eldlich this is, because there's a very, very high amount of them running around at the moment. So this could really be anything, but it is playing at the Dream package, so that's something worth noting. So this could just be straight up the Dragoon Eldlich build, but the Cursed Eldon coming down next, being met with an Ash in response. Very interesting to see like Ash being played in Dragon Link, especially in 50 cards. So it makes me wonder like how many non-ninja cards he is playing. But just gonna set one and then use the Scarlet in the end phase to grab a copy of a Golden Land Trap. That's gonna be Conquistador in this case. And the Droplet unfortunately not accomplishing a whole ton this turn as far as breaking the board. So we'll have to see what the other set is, because if it's not anything impactful, then he'll just be sitting on no interruptions. Seal going to go ahead and tribute itself during the end phase for cost, even though it won't bounce anything, but still can activate. And then that'll go ahead and summon a copy of a Black Metal Dragon from the deck. He probably has room to play the third copy of the Striker Dragon now. Obviously, since you have two open spots. And the flex spot was sometimes used for the third striker anyways. I personally liked having the third striker even pre-ban list, so yeah, not surprised to see it make the extra deck here. That's going to trigger the Black Metal Dragon to grab a copy of Red MD from deck to hand. And now the question is, are you able to go for a game? You have Red MD, you can bring back Protector. I mean, Savage is negated, or it doesn't have any counters. So, I mean, you can definitely make Sword because you have a normal summon as well. You can also trigger Recharger here because he has it in hand still. Striker gonna pop itself to add back Rocket Synchron. So this can allow him to trigger like Recharger, he can bring back Brotar, and then he can search for Levy to clear the board, and then just go for game. This definitely should be Dragon Link's game here. Recharger gonna bring back LP, an interesting choice. Okay, so I do wonder what his plan is. Gonna normal summon a copy of Red Ice Wyvern. I wonder if he's on Dragoon, or if this is just a search target for Black Metal. He's gonna banish it for Red MD. Oh, he wants to bring back the Pisty. I see. Okay. This is an interesting line. He could do it this way too, because Pisty can also bring back Brotar, and that can search the Levy that way. So, yeah, that also works. I think this loses a little bit harder to something like a Torrential, because now you've used your normal summon, and like the card in hand, besides the Rocket Synchron that I just added back, has to be really good. Because like you could Red MD bring back Pisty here, and if you get like Torrential, then this really is unfortunate. You could also get Ice Dragon's Prison here, and that would also be unfortunate. Like activate LP, chain Ice Dragon's Prison, and then like banish Brotar and LP. That would be nuts. So he's really like assuming that last back row is just nothing impactful. I mean, you could also get Needle Sealing here too. He's gonna grab a copy of Safer, so it looks like that back row isn't anything. So I'm curious as to what that's going to be. It looks like it's just completely dead, so it might just be another Golden Land trap. That'll be something to go ahead and look back in the speed review. But that's gonna tribute itself, or send itself rather, doesn't tribute, send itself to add a copy of Wyverburster via its own effect. And then Pisty can bring back Brotar, it looks like. And then Brotar can add a Levy. Yes, this is what I was mentioning, you could just do it this way as well. So the last card in hand was a copy of Forbidden Droplet. So we know his hand is Wyverburster, Rocket Synchron, and now Levianeer. So now we have Pervert Info. Well, Pervert Info, except for the unknown set from MX Saber's side of the field. So he can just go Sword and then... Or he can go Romulus, because he hasn't gone through that yet, so he can use the Guard Dragon to make Romulus. That looks like he's thinking a bit. Gonna use the Brotar and the what's it called? The Pisty to go for a Romulus here. That's gonna grab a search. I wonder if he's playing Ravine. That would be cool to see if he's back on Ravine. He is, okay. So this could maybe like dump something like Absa Router if he's on that. There's also a world in which you could send like Galactic Spiral Dragon if you want to end on like Hope Harbinger. Harbinger Seal is a pretty nice combo because Harbinger protects the seal. Gonna banish for a Levianeer. Gonna chain the Conk in response. So that, yeah, the last card has to be Sanguine. So he waited for quite some time to fire that off. A little bit surprised he didn't do this in response to LP, because that would have nullified Pisty's value too. He's gonna pop the Romulus, but yeah, Brotar just comes back now, and this is definitely enough to just go for Sword, right? Yeah. So even though that was a little bit risky, I feel on the Dragon Link player's part, still ended up being good enough for sure, because of that set being Scarlet. So yeah, if that was like a board clear, that could have been very scary. I personally, in that situation, would just try to go for Levianeer as early as possible, but nonetheless, he was still able to pull out the win there, so well played. And if you guys are enjoying this commentary, definitely be sure to leave a like in the video and subscribe if you're new and enjoy this style of video. But we're just going to go ahead and now carry on into game number 2, where we're going to be seeing Eldlich going first. Now, I'm still not 100% sure on what this Eldlich build is, but we will now see. Going to be activating a copy of Pot of Extravagance right away. That's going to banish 6 in main phase 1 to draw 2. So we can actually just take a look at what the banish is. Might as well. Oh, Entis. Okay, so maybe he's on Dogmatika cards. He's on Dragoon. We already knew that. Okay, yeah, he's definitely on Dogmatika for sure. Alright, so that was a little bit of a spoiler, but I mean, hey, now we have a bit more intel. Gonna go and activate Red Ice Fusion next, and then go for Red Ice Dark Dragoon. It's always a little bit awkward when you have Red Ice Fusion specifically and the Dogmatika cards, because it's like when you summon Dogmatikas, you can't go for Red Ice Fusion and vice versa. So it's like you pick one or the other, but both engines are pretty powerful. So we will see how that ends up panning out. I mean, that doesn't really stop people from playing those engines together, as we saw with like Buster Blader, right? So gonna be normal summoning a copy of Black Metal Dragon for the Dragon Link player. That's always a good start. Going to go for Striker Dragons. That's going to trigger its effect as well as Nocto and the Black Metal. Nocto being trailing 3 here. So he's going to grab Boot Sector and the Red MD and get the Nocto on the side of the board. Is there a Joel here? It looks like there is not. So we will now see a Link summon of the Dragoon Knight Romulus. So you can now chain block as well with the Noctivision Dragon, which is pretty good. And because it's playing Phalanx, I would imagine he's also still playing the Divine Lance to be able to access Fiber a bit easier. I'm not really sure if that accomplishes anything, like going from Romulus straight to Fiber, because you're ending up with like the same number of materials anyway. I guess it makes Fiber just more of a backup plan. Kind of like in that last game that we saw where he got drolled and that was just the contingency. So not too bad. I actually didn't see what he added. Oh, I think he's adding right now. Okay. Off the Romulus, that is. So I think you definitely just hold the Dragoon until something hits the board that'll be threatening. But obviously you gotta be a little bit careful because Sword can just crash into it. Like, Sword can't be destroyed by battle, so you don't even use the Sword effect to attack boost. You just attack into the Dragoon if it hasn't negated yet. He looks like he's thinking here between... Yeah, he's definitely thinking between Ravine and the Divine Lance. He's for sure playing both. Let's go ahead and speed this up a little bit. It's going to be Dragon Ravine. He's going to activate that, and then let's see what he sends. He's probably playing Absolutor. Gonna send Safer, that's not bad. He can also send a Levy now that he has that in Graveyard. So there's a multitude of ways he can try and break this board. Levy is going to be the pick. So he's then going to use the Sacred effect in the graveyard to target the Levianeer. No response. So I am curious as to what these back row could be. Gonna be banishing 3 darks, so more afraid of maybe the hand? Pretty interesting. I feel like if you see... not really sure if you would go for the hand or the field clear. I'd probably just try and wipe the board personally, but he's still getting rid of a card. Yeah, a bit surprised to see it dropped. But I guess it is a little bit harder to get lights engraved for this deck now, because Link Cross was like the easiest way to get a light. Now you have to either go like Protector Whelp or have a Safer engraved or like Wyvern Burster, which are like not hard to come by, but you know, definitely not as easy as going for your normal combo. And then just dropping Levy after the fact. Looks like Boot Sector is going to be the follow-up here. That's going to summon Rockets from hand. See how many he drew. This kind of tells us he's on a relatively large rocket package. I mean, like we saw Synchron and we saw Silver in addition to the Recharger. So he's playing a fair amount of them. I mean, it's not like anything super abnormal. Some people were still on that like exact lineup pre-ban list, but we'll see. Okay, let's go ahead and just... Oh, he was thinking. Okay, that's what I was wondering, like, why it was taking so long for him to resolve the Boot Sector, but yeah, I was thinking there. So Dragoon going to negate the Boot Sector. And then now Red MD comes down by banishing the Levianeer. He pitched a Red Eyes Wyvern, by the way, so that's something to note, that this Dragoon can come back, in theory. Red MD gonna summon from hand, it looks like. I wonder what the pick's gonna be there. There's not a whole lot of targets that would be of good value. Like, you immediately think of Brotar, but he already went through Levy. And then, obviously, he already uses, like, black metal stuff. Oh, alright, so he's playing multiple Seyferts. Fair enough. So now can get access to the baby Chaos Dragons. Gonna be sending away Tracer. And that can now search for Wyvern Burster here. Or Collapse Haven if he wants to like link this away and then banish it. But no, he's gonna go for Wyvern Burster. Gonna be linking away the Seyfert for a copy of Elpy. And now we'll see the Wyvern Burster come down next. So I guess his plan is just to try and combo and see if there's any sort of response. I mean, Sword now does clear the Dragoon and you can use its effect safely. So that's an easy way to get rid of it. It really just depends on how these back row can be cleared. There's not a ton of like board breaking power that I can immediately think of, at least from the extra deck. So it'll be interesting to see. Wyvern Burster getting the Collapse Serpent after it was linked away for the Pisty, and now Elpy is going to trigger. That's going to prompt a think from MX Saber here. So let's see what the response ends up being. Gonna be Conquistador, so he has a Scarlet set too. If there's an Ash... Oh! Alright, all that's invalidated because of the Fed reboot. Well, you know, that can happen for sure. Is there a judgment? No, there is no judgment. So reboot is going to all but ensure that this game is over. The only thing I can think of that would stop this is maybe a set copy of Forbidden Droplet. That could be pretty interesting to see if like Sword attacks and then you like activate Droplet in response to the attack, and then that reduces Sword's attack point value and prevents its battle immunity. So we'll see if Trolix ends up trying to stick a copy of Savage before that, just in case, because we saw Droplet game 1, that's why I'm bringing it up here. Elpy going to summon out Brotar, and then Brotar will go ahead and activate targeting the Elpy. We'll see what the search ends up being. So he drew the Recharger again, grabbing a copy of Absa Router. So he's definitely planning on pistying back the Tracer so he can summon the Router as well. Going to link everything away for a copy of Borosword. Then Pisty's effect will be used, bringing back the copy of Tracer. This allows him to summon the Router that he just searched, and now he can also go for a Tracer popping the Pisty or the Router, I would imagine. And that would go for a level 4, and then the Router can trigger as well. Gonna be targeting the Pisty. So yeah, I think this is going to be pretty solid for Dragon Link here, actually. Silver Rocket comes out, and then we'll see a copy of Savage being made. There has to now be a response here. Ah, there is a Forbidden Droplet. Wow, I actually didn't expect that. I didn't expect it to actually be Forbidden Droplets. So that sent away the Conch and the Scarlet. And now both of these are off. So this Dragoon's actually staying alive. Wow, that is crazy. This is why it's like interesting to me, because by doing it this way, like now the only real out Dragoon is going to be negated. He already attempted Conch, even though it got negated, so he can't use its Graveyard effect, but he still can use a Scarlet, which is nice. And we saw him set Dogmatika Punishment. The last card in hand we already knew was Collapse Serpent. So he's probably just going to make Seal with these two, honestly. Well, you don't ever mind linking away Borosword because you can always get back with a Recharger. Like Red MD Recharger, stuff like that. So it never feels like great, but it's not bad either. Unfortunately, there's no real way to like force out Dragoon negate from the Seal and then negate it with like a Savage because it's negated. Oh, you definitely have even more than 2 spots in the extra deck, I just realized, because like you're definitely not playing Marcher anymore. And you're probably not playing Herald either. So now you got a lot of spaces, actually. Pretty interesting. Wow, he's just gonna straight up scoop from there. That's kind of crazy, huh? After resolving red reboot against the trap deck, he ended up losing that one. I think the sequencing could have been a little bit different. Personally, since he had the second copy of Sacred in his hand, he had an additional light monster. So there is a possibility that he could have like maybe gone for the boot play and then see how that would have panned out. And then if that didn't work, then he could just go for the levy afterward, and then see if that would have gotten him anywhere. But very interesting. I think even if there was no way he could have gotten a light engrave to banish for levy, though, summoning the Savage first to force out any lingering droplets, I think, was the play. Just because like you saw it in game 1, so you gotta, I think, play around that a bit. Because he's for sure gonna be keeping that in. Unless he just has like better things to side, which I mean, is a possibility, but you never know. So he's going to be going first to the Dragon Link player that is in game 3, and it looks like he's going to start off pretty strong with a Chaos Space pitching a Tracer. Tracer is not the ideal pitch target, but it's not horrible either. Gonna search for Wyvern Burster, of course. And it's funny to think like this is like full combo, but I mean, I'm not really sure what that combo entails at the current moment, so pretty fascinating to think about what the end of the board is supposed to be, because he hasn't played completely uninterrupted yet. But yeah, I guess it's fair that he scooped that game, since the punishment set and like the Dragoon would just clean everything up. There's not really a whole ton to be done there in that department. But yeah, Wyvern Burster comes down by banishing the Tracer. He's going to summon a Striker off of that and trigger both the Striker and the Wyvern Burster, grabbing Collapse Serpent and the Boot Sector launch. You can then go for the Collapse Serpent to banish the Wyvern Burster, and then go for the Chaos Space, of course. Super, super strong. And from this position, he could just easily go for Romulus, and then trigger Collapse Serpent again. This is obviously nothing different. The question just becomes, how exactly do you deviate from this position exactly? So Romulus Chainlink 1, Black Dragon Collapse Serpent Chainlink 2. And he's been getting Ravine quite a lot. I mean, the first one obviously, or the last game was obviously because he wanted to get the Levy into the graveyard. So we'll see. Alright, he's going to activate Divine Lance next, and then go for Phalanx. I actually did not see what he searched, because I just was talking and I didn't pay attention. He had a Divine Lance, okay. So he's then going to normal summon the Black Metal Dragon after summoning out Phalanx from the Divine Lance. Or equipping it and then it summon itself. Is he playing Appaloosa? Looks like no. He's going for Fiber here. Interesting. Fascinating. Okay, so he's going to go Fiber and then Black Metal, going for Synchron. Maybe he goes Appaloosa here, and then he goes LP there. That would make a lot of sense. Yeah, so Appaloosa for 2. So he has Red MD in hand, he has Boot Sector, and he has a Wyvern Burster, I do believe. I'm not sure if we know anything else, but I wasn't paying exact attention, but those are the cards that we do know for sure. LP going to be summoning out the Brotar. That can now trigger its effect. Pitching the Safer, that's quite nice. To go for a Levy. Now I can turn this into Pisty. Well, this means he can't end on Seal, unfortunately. But, I mean, he's still in a pretty good spot. Hand Trap Insurance is quite nice. Gonna go for the Levy, banishing 3 Darks. It's gonna rip a card. Yeah, when the dice does this on DB, I just end up... lately, whenever I've had to like resolve that kind of effect, I just kind of pick now. I don't even bother with the dice anymore. Just because it kind of just takes a long time. But Levy gonna shuffle 1 back. And then now we'll see what the follow-up is. There is a Tracer banish, that's an easy target for the Pisty. Maybe he's playing Delindrous. He could like end an Abomination. That would be cool if that made a return into like Dragon Link strategies. Also curious to see if there's like maybe any way to overlay this for a rank 8. Like I mentioned, Harbinger would be quite nice to see. Harbinger Appaloosa is another good combo. The fact that like it redirects attacks is super relevant. So now we'll see what the play ends up being from here. So he's going to banish the LP for the Remedy. We saw him search that because he normal summoned the black metal. And this can now use its effect to bring back a dragon from grave. The pick is going to be Phalanx. He's going to banish... Oh, is he playing the Trish Fusion? Huh. Okay, so the Trish Fusion also will be able to activate its effect here. So that actually banishes a card from deck, a card from the top of your opponent's deck, and then one from their extra, and you get to choose. And yeah, this is a combo that Shimping was playing for quite some time, banishing Tempest to search Crusadia Draco. Ooh, banishing Extravagance from the top. That is unfortunate. Would have been a nice top deck for sure. So let's see if he is able to make VFD. Very curious if that is a possibility here. He's going to pick Dragoon out of the extra. That's interesting that he picked Dragoon. Because I would assume he's on multiples since he's on Extravagance. But... that's an interesting decision. Maybe like everything's just multiples, so like it doesn't really matter what gets banished here. So Tempest going to be used. That can now search Crusadia Draco. He hasn't used the Tracer effect yet either. Oh, World Legacy Guard Dragon. That can bring back the Synchron. And now if he plays Croc, he is good to go. Croc and then VFD. And Savage. Quite good. So yeah, this is pretty solid. Now, against this particular matchup, I'm not sure how impactful the Calamities is going to be. But just as like a kind of, I don't know, blind combo, or just like a generic combo, this is definitely not too bad. Gonna summon off the Recharger from the Tracer effect and then go for the Savage here. I think Eldlich can certainly recover from this though, or like they don't mind too much. But the thing is that Trollocs has a lot of cards in hand. BFD gonna be calling a light here to play around Golden Lord and Ecclesia, of course. So we know Levy's in hand because of the Safer. We know the Light Dragon Wyver Burster is in hand because of the Collapse Serpent. We know Boot Sector Launch is in hand because of the Striker Dragon. And we know Crusadia Draco is in hand because of the Tempest. Do we know anything else? I don't know. I'll be honest, I wasn't paying full attention, but we'll find out in the speed review. Dark Ruler coming down first. So that's going to stop Savage in particular, as well as the Appaloosa. And now he's just going to make a Dragoon. Because he opened Insight here. Going to be sending away the Wyvern to add a Red Ice Fusion. Is there an Ash, is the question. We saw Ash in game 1. So it is possible this gets Ash and that ends up being game-changing. It looks like not. So I take it that he banished Dragoon because pretty much everything in this extra deck has to be multiples for Extravagance. And then he just was hoping that maybe MX Saber open Extravagance and then just like would banish the other copies of Dragoon, which would make sense. So I think that's a reasonable hit. This just means that there's definitely nothing better to take care of. Or like the one-outs just don't matter as much as just hitting a Dragoon and hoping that the Extravagant scenario plays out. Gonna be setting a couple of cards here. Obviously can't attack or use the effects of Dragoon under VFD. But Trollocs definitely can make it out of this game if he is able to like stick negation and then go into sword, and that would be pretty decent. He's gonna use VFD calling a light. Now this has to force a response in some way because that's gonna obviously out the dragoon. I think actually Dragon Link wins this game. Dragoon going to negate and destroy. Yeah, that. Well, so he did play around the Ecclesia there. I mean, she would be able to activate her effect on the field, but just as a body. Brotar now going to be triggered off of the Dragoon destruction. And yeah, there's definitely no way that Dragon Link loses here. Because he has Levy in hand. Just pop the board. There's actually no lights engraved, funnily enough, but we know there's Fiber Burst in hand, so that's pretty easy. Oh, and he just pitched Gamma, fair enough. Pretty interesting they kept this in. Game 3 going first. But he's going to search Noctivision. Now you can just banish, pop the board, and go for a sword, and that should be good. Is Redemdy? Redemdy is banished, so that's a little bit unfortunate, but like it's not that big of a deal. He could also bring. Oh no, he just banished. Or he banished Pissy earlier too, so he can't bring that back off Recharger. I'm just trying to think of like ways that you can use Recharger. So Levy going to just pop the back row. Oh, he said he had a response to Brotar, but it looks like it didn't matter. Oh, he had triple tactics anyway, so I could just steal the Dragoon. Yeah, alright, so let's go ahead and speed through this. Oh, there was an Ash in hand, it looks like. That's kind of funny. Maybe he drew that. But yeah, let's go ahead and speed through this match here as it's a sort of review. So, yeah, we already knew all these cards, just given the fact that this got rid of the Dark Magician and the Scarlet. This was used early. This got negated, and then the last card was another Scarlet. So the card he drew for turn was a Scarlet. And then we knew most of these cards too. Yeah, so it's kind of a weird opening, but not too bad. Getting Brotar Engraves is nice in case there's like a Gamma, even though Gamma is again dropping in popularity. It's nice to have this just in case you can get follow-up. Again, provided Droll isn't there either. But yeah, Fiber. There's nothing to dissect here, like not a ton. I still am curious as to why this wasn't used. I think that keeping this on board was more valuable. Because he was able to get back Recharger next turn anyway, since he went like the Black Metal Dragon into the third Striker, if I remember correctly. So yeah, ending on these two plus Ash is like fairly reasonable for this format, to be honest. So yeah, Droplet came down and then negated the board, but then this got Ashed. Which ultimately probably actually wouldn't have mattered a whole ton if this resolved. Unless if he wanted to get Golden Lord, which actually, yeah, no, that mattered a lot, actually. I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, Seal going to be used in the end phase. That grabbed the Black Metal, draws a Droplet of his own. Gets the Red MD, adds Synchron. See, I don't think adding the Synchron really did anything. Like, he could have had Recharger, and like he could have had this boot. I mean, the boot ended up not mattering anyway, staying on board, but just like on a matter of principle, I like having boot up. And again, I feel like this play like really loses heart to any disruption, like especially Torrential Tribute. Yeah, like TT on that Pissy summon would have been nasty, because all that would have been left is the Synchron. I don't think he normal summoned, but yeah, that would have been pretty absurd. But yeah, there was nothing there, so yeah, pretty much we already know what happens here. Yeah, once like the LP and Pissy resolved, like that was absolutely just the end of it. I don't even think it's hard to say if like using the conk on the LP activation would have done anything. He would have been left with like these two, the Red MD and the Savage, as well as the Pissy, and he wouldn't have this Levy. It could have mattered, actually. It definitely could have. It would have afforded him an extra turn for sure. I think it waited a bit too long on the trigger here. But yeah, I mean, it was like a super high value line, but I think it might have been... Personally, it was for me personally, I would have tried to play a bit safer. I'm not gonna like categorically call it a greedy play, but I would have gone for a different route personally. But let's see. Oh, we already looked at this the last game. But yeah, it would make sense that like it's a lot of one-ofs, like Dogmatika package and like, or what duplicates, not one-of, sorry, and then like some random one-ofs like Link Spider. So yeah, it makes sense that if you're gonna banish off Trish Fusion, you pick Dragoon. There's nothing really that much better to pick. But yeah, the last set was the droplet. So the card he shuffled back was Conquistador, pretty interesting. So his hand of Black Metal, Nocto, Reboot, I think definitely wins the game through Dragoon Droplet. Just if you play it out different. Let's just watch this again in hindsight. So definitely no onus on Hcabe to do anything here. I mean, definitely just let the cell go. Chain blocking the Nocto, or with Nocto rather. And then this got access to Levy. So let's think here. Is there any way that you can get a light engrave before dropping this Levy? I guess actually, no, it makes more sense now that he has the reboot, now that I think about it. Because, yeah, hitting a hand trap from hand is more important because he's assuming these are all traps. So, yeah, that's reasonable. I think he just assumed that he was like safe no matter what. And maybe he just wasn't thinking about droplet. So I actually think that this wasn't a misplay, the banishing 3 darks, because he had reboot, so he like felt very safe around the back row. So he wanted to hit a hand trap out of hand. So yeah, I think this is a fine play. Looking back on it. That would have been funny if Wyvern got shuffled back, actually. Because that would have made Insight a lot better. But yeah, this got negated. It went Banish for Redmd. If he had used like Conk on this instead, then the reboot would have negated it, and he would have gotten both the Tracer and the Recharger. That would have been like a completely different game. So using this definitely mattered. Using this first mattered. So this one is something safer. Went for the Wyvern Burster, LP, and then Pesty. And LP, and then chain this. So I'm just thinking of a way. I mean, it makes sense that you don't want to like burn materials. Like going Borosaur just like seems like an efficient use of materials, but I don't know, just because like you see Droplet in game 1, so it's like that's the only way to lose the game. Because like Conquistador being activated means that there is a Scarlet. So Conquistador's here, Punishment's here, one of these two has to be a Scarlet. So you only have to put up one negate to combat the potential Droplets. So like the 100% play, I think, is to go Protect Your Whelp with these two, Pissy back the Tracer, get the, what do you call it? Gosh, I'm blanking. Silver Rocket from deck. And then, or you can just summon the Collapse Serpent, make Savage. That forces out the Droplet, and then you go Borosaur, no TK from there. So yeah, there was definitely like a 100% line. I think he thought it was in the bag just because he resolved reboot. But yeah, again, because I would just not hold my breath because I saw a Droplet game 1. So there's a very high chance, or not high chance, but like there's a real chance that could be there. So committing to this just makes it so that, Droplet is pretty much a game winner. So we see this come down, and then just right here, get Dropleted, and like there's nothing to do, because like if you make Seal, it doesn't matter, because like Seal gets negated no matter what the top deck is. You don't have a hand trap to stop this. Your board gets wiped by Dragoon, and you just lose because you're on 4k already because of reboot. So yeah, I think even though I can't like say necessarily I blame him for thinking he was super safe under resolving reboot against the trap deck, it's just like the small chance he did have it. I guess if he has 3 of it and he resolved Extravagance, it's like greater than a 33% chance, like around 40. So like a little bit higher than that actually. So yeah, it's not unreasonable to expect that he has Droplet if he kept all 3 in. So statistically, I think it's actually worth playing around it, even though like reboot makes it feel like, oh, you should just auto win from there. You know, drop it is a like it would be, I guess, more justifiable if you didn't see it in game one, but because you see it in game one, that's like why I'm kind of talking about this quite a lot. But yeah, I think that's just an important point to make. Is that like if you see cards, just make sure that you play around them. Like not to the point where like you like ruin your play, but in that case, you know, he could have easily gone for Savage first and then just go Sword after. But that aside, here's game 3. So we saw the Chaos Space. There's just no hand traps, so we don't even need to talk about this. It's just the combo that we saw. It ended on what, VFD, Savage, Appaloosa with 2 negations. Which I wonder if there was any way for him to deviate, because it is Eldlich. But I mean, then again, like VFD wasn't too bad considering like, because he actually now he knows the Dogmatika, even though we didn't really see Dogmatika cards, but we saw, or like he knows because of the punishment being set, as well as the fact that he saw his extra deck with Trishula. Well, I guess he was already committed to the line with Trishula, so that's an irrelevant point. But he saw the punishment, so he knows that there are Dogmatika cards. So I guess there is a valid reason to go VFD here, so that's definitely fair. Yeah, this dice can take a while, but he shuffled back Nadir Servant, which also is it would be more important in a world where you can activate monster effects. But yeah, here we see the Draco Search. Let's see if I was able to like correctly keep track of the cards in the hand. So I said Levy from the Safer, Wyver Burster from the Collapse Serpent, Sector from the Striker, and Drago from the Tempest. And we did not know Tactics and Gamma, because this was hard drawn for turn, and this was drawn off Croc. So I was able to keep track of his whole hand. That's nice. Alright. It's just nice. I kind of like this actually now that I'm doing the commentaries this way, because I get to play like kind of some like mini games like that. Like how well can I keep track of their hands? Because that's something that I am fairly good at doing. Is just like remembering what people have in hand. So let's see, Dark Ruler, and then Insight for the fusion. This, yeah, it has to send a Red Eyes Monster. Yeah, so that last game, like, imagine you shuffle back the Wyvern and that turn back Insight on. That would have been funny. Yeah, like super minor point. Yeah, going Dragoon. That's like all he really could have done, right? There's nothing really to do here. Oh yeah, and he's like Hcabe and Scarlet. Yeah, there's just like no interruptions here. Like, I guess you can get rid of Brotar Engrave, which is decent, but realistically that's not going to do a whole ton. Yeah, Dragoon Net Negate and then go Brotar. You could like chain Brotar here, that's not bad. But like you already know he has Levy, so like, yeah, it just doesn't matter. Yeah, this is like by far just the game over. I guess maybe a cool thing would have been to walk Hero here and like get rid of the light, because like it's clear that he has Levy in hand, but realistically you knew he had the Wyver Burster too, so it's not that hard for them to get lights in grave. Yeah, there was just no way around it. Like one walk Hero at this stage of the game was just not going to do anything. Oh, that's what he meant by he had the response to Brotar, because he had walk Hero, but yeah, it didn't matter, especially with the triple tactics talent. So yeah, that's going to do it for this matchup. Pretty interesting to see Dragon Link. I almost said Dragon Rulers. Dragon Link still being able to play in this format, at least to some degree. I think the adaptability of this deck is pretty interesting to see as far as like how players are going to shift their builds. But I think it's just a lot of people have been so tired of this deck, and like people aren't really going to bother labbing it as like intensely. But it still could be worth like taking a look at just to see if there's any different directions that you can pull this deck in. But that's going to be it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like as well as any thoughts or feedback in the comments. Subscribe for more informative and competitive Yu-Gi-Oh content. If you want to, you can follow me on all social media platforms or support me via Patreon or TCG Player. All the links in the description as usual. And until next time, I'll catch you in the next video. See you guys.